Cheap Chinese smartphones are good because they are good and cheap. This seems to confirm the opinions of satisfied users. How much is the truth in these assurances? Today we are testing Xiaomi Mi6, the flagship of a well-known Chinese brand, which does not stand out too much on the most expensive phones of well-known brands but is much cheaper than them. If you cannot see the difference, why overpay? Or maybe you can see? Not only the display of the Mi6 is small by today's standards, but also the case, which nestles pleasantly in the hand. The buttons on the right side are easy to reach. The smartphone does not need to hide from the water either. According to Xiaomi, it is watertight, but without any indication of how deep and long it may submerge. On April 19, 2017, Xiaomi formalized the Mi6, its new flagship. Like the Mi5 before it, it tries to impose on the parallel market as a flagship killer. This smartphone with a technical sheet at the forefront of technology but proposed at a price defying all competition. Is the bet successful? The first feeling is even heavier, 168 grams, but it is excellent for holding it. It is especially beneficial for the back, which is rounded to the side so that it will fit into your hand. Indeed, controlling the Xiaomi Mi6 with one hand is seamless and comfortable, which also applies to carrying, for example, in the pocket of your legs. In addition, in black it works very elegantly and discreetly. The screen coating is soft, does not catch the finger and its edges are 2.5D to make the use more enjoyable. This curvature is also found in the 4 slices, as is currently the fashion. On the back, it is more or less similar since the Xiaomi Mi6 has a glass shell, or ceramic on the most expensive model, curved on all 4 sides. The Xiaomi Mi6 comes in a package that comes with several additional accessories. In addition to the USB-C cord, you can also find a rubber cover and USB-C reduction to a 3.5mm audio jack. Hands-free headphones are missing. The Xiaomi Mi6 has opened up the box at first glance. We even enjoyed it, even more, when we pulled it out and grabbed it. In addition, on the blue model that we have, fingerprints that have decided to stay are very little visible. There is the back of the Xiaomi logo, very visible, and 3 discrete lines in English and Chinese, relatively simple, but we would like more discreet. The Xiaomi Mi6 design is top-notch and is certainly not ashamed to compare with more expensive competitors. On the contrary, smartphone surprised us and, at least in terms of design and quality of processing, we consider it one of the best in the market. In his hands, he has a lasting and firm impression. Additionally, the blue version is not a problem with fingerprints, which can be seen here. We have a single reservation on the sloping back. When holding a hand is more or less alright, but when laying on not quite flat surfaces, it can be scratched. You should, therefore, be careful where you think Xiaomi Mi6. Just to be sure you cannot find him anywhere else than you put him. Plus, there is also increased water resistance. The Xiaomi Mi6 cannot dive like some of the flagship ships, but will withstand the usual pitfalls. Finally, the 3 physical buttons, power, high volume, and low volume, are all located on the straight edge and are very accessible, even with one hand, and the drawer for both SIM cards is on the left. The upper edge hosts an infrared port and an environmental microphone, while the lower edge accommodates the USB-C port, the multimedia speaker, and that's it. Yes, Xiaomi has decided to ignore the port jack, replaced by a USB-C adapter to jack included in the box. The screen of the Xiaomi Mi 6 is not exceptional in its lack of borders, but its intrinsic qualities cannot be denied. With a brightness of over 570 CD per square meter according to our probe, we can say that the Mi 6 is immersed in the lux and has no problem with readability, even in direct sunlight. At worst it can happen that fingerprints come to interfere on the darker areas of the image, but a simple stroke of the rag can solve this problem very quickly. Xiaomi Mi 6 has a full HD screen of 5.15 inches, which is very standard today. With 428p, the display fineness is already very good and it is useless on such a diagonal to switch to WQHD. Note that its slab also displays a very good contrast of 1260. Very wide viewing angles, but a voluntary colorimetry a little cold by default, more than 7500K where the standard is more around 7000K. Fortunately, an option makes the whites a little purer in the phone settings. Too bad that the possibilities are not as precise, however, as in other brands where it is possible to choose very precisely the hue that you want to give to its display. First and foremost, it feels good and because of its size feels good in the hand. Above all, the processing at Xiaomi is really good on most smartphones. That was also the case with the predecessor of the Xiaomi Mi 5S, which is also very stable and well survived crashes. The colleague who had tested the Mi6 in front of me, has dropped it twice hard from a height of about 1 meter and it is undamaged except for a few small scratches. These can only be seen in direct light, e.g. in sunlight, if you look closely. Overall, I like the design, the handling, and the quality really. Only the buttons on the side could feel a bit better in terms of the click feeling. Inside the Xiaomi Mi6 works a Qualcomm Snapdragon 835 octa-core processor, whose cores are clocked up to 2.45 GHz. It is the currently strongest CPU from Qualcomm, which is also built into the Sony XZ Premium, HTC U11 and the US version of the S8 and S8 Plus. For the graphics of the Qualcomm Adreno 540 is responsible. It offers enough power to play at the highest settings at full resolution, which should not be difficult as this is a full HD display. 2K would have done it without any problem. But the size does not really need that. Otherwise, the system runs as usual with Xiaomi very fluidly and should cause no problem. For this, the internal 64GB memory, 52GB available, with a very fast read-write speed of 460, 200 MB as points. In the other benchmarks, the Mi6 delivers as expected peak values, with benchmarks are often only half the truth. The waste heat is still limited but is noticeable if you do not use a shell. But we could not measure more than 38 degrees in the warmest place. The 12-megapixel dual camera consists of two different sensors. On the one hand the Sony IMX386 with optical 4-axis image stabilizer with f1.8 and on the other hand the Samsung S5K3M3 without optical image stabilizer and f2.6. The focus is on phase detection and a dual LED flash is also included. The two sensors are to ensure that as lossless as possible twice zoom is possible, which also works quite well. If you look closely, you also notice that when zooming the Samsung sensor is switched on. The colors are great, the dynamic range is really good and saturation, contrast etc. are great. Snapshots always work well and the optical image stabilizer also helps. Otherwise, I also like that close-ups work well here. The photo experience offered by the Mi6 is sometimes frustrating as the smartphone alternates the very good and the very average. Xiaomi highlights its optical zoom X2 and a portrait mode. The latter is rather convincing even if we regret his tendency to smooth the clichés. When conditions are good, the Mi6 is a good photo phone. It produces detailed pictures, with a good sharpness and color is rather precise. The 8-megapixel front camera can also be very convincing here. This is not only due to the level of detail, the great colors, contrast, etc., but also the great dynamic range. You can take pictures where you and the background are clearly visible. For other and more expensive smartphones, it often happens that the background is simply not visible or the sky just knows. This is also an advantage if you want to record videos with the Xiaomi Mi6 with the front camera. Vloggers should have their fun here. I do not mention the sound quality here and save it for the corresponding section. Videos are recorded here with 1080p 30 fps. Otherwise, the pictures are pretty good even in low light situations and look quite natural and well lit. A display selfie flash, in which the display lights up white, does not seem to exist here. The Mi6 superstructure is a bit from another world. Compared to others, it differs in many things, not just about appearance but also functions. Xiaomi approaches the area itself in the traditional way, respectively. A traditional style of Apple smartphones. All application icons are located directly on the desktop or in the folders. If you prefer a different desktop layout with your own app menu, you'll need to look at alternatives from Play. The superstructure that runs over Android 7.1.1 Nougat has been a very comprehensive impression on us. The Xiaomi Mi6 is a 3350 mAh battery installed, which is quite large if one looks at the stature of the smartphone. This can be charged with Quick Charge 3.0, even though the Snapdragon 835 actually supports Quick Charge 4.0. You have probably decided against it because of the license fees. Overall, it loads but relatively quickly. The battery life is quite good in about 9 hours screen on time. Normally you can get through the day, but sometimes the standby consumption seems to be a bit high, and at least it does not always seem to be consistent with my review sample. The Xiaomi Mi6 is really an insider tip among high-end smartphones. It offers top-notch performance and a really great camera, which does not look like an S8 but still outshines many of its competitors. That also applies to the front camera. The design is really nice, even if it attracts fingerprints, but it is very stable and high quality built and should be able to withstand a lot. Currently, only the microphone is negative. It's great to talk on the phone and you can barely tell the difference to other devices, but when recording videos, it seems a bit tinny and ups and downs could definitely be better. That's a pity since the Xiaomi Mi 5S actually had a good microphone. In the end, the Xiaomi Mi6 is a surprisingly good smartphone and a great alternative to other high-end smartphones that cost significantly more. Sure, an S8 or a Sony XZ come with many more great features and maybe a better display or a better camera, but it always raises the question for the user if he or she really needs this added value and if one is ready for more to pay. The decision is definitely in the preferences of the buyer. Personally, I think the Xiaomi Mi6 is great and, if the display were bigger, would even replace it with my current device because I'm a fan of big smartphones. But there are a lot of people who are perfect for the 5.15 inches and they are sure to enjoy the device very much. Xiaomi's great strength usually features and above all performance in class with the best flagship at a significantly lower price. And indeed, Mi6 is still cheaper than other prestigious competitors right now.